Hello and welcome to Tobisonics. It is Tuesday the 4th of May 2021. Hope you all had a great weekend and that the week's been kind to you, and yes, for all the Jedis out there, may the Force be with you. In this week's episode, we're going to take a look at a new plugin from Baby Audio, the Smooth Operator. And what I want to know is the Smooth Operator a legitimate creative tool that's going to bring something different to production and mixing? Or is it simply an easy and convenient shortcut for producers and mix engineers who simply can't be bothered to learn how to properly use EQ and compression and what have you? And in order to find out, we're going to put the Smooth Operator into a real-world test. We're going to put it into productions that I've already made where I had specific problems to do with harshness of frequency and what have you, and see if the Smooth Operator would have done a better job. But before we do that, let's take a look at how Baby Audio described the Smooth Operator on their website. Smooth Operator combines equalization, spectral compression, and resonance suppression into a singular creative experience that is instant and intuitive. Before we get into it, if I could just ask you to take a moment to like this video and subscribe to my channel. That would really help me out. Thank you for taking the time.
All these things I remember. All these things I remember. All these things I remember. All these things I remember.
All right, first up, let's try the Smooth Operator out on something that should be absolutely designed for purpose for it. We've got a set of harmonies that I created in Cubase, which Cubase does very well, but you do tend to get one or two nasty frequencies coming up. And what you'll listen to right now is just how it was in the production. All right then, let's take the Smooth Operator out of bypass and let's have a look at a couple of things. First up, we're starting off with a vocal preset, vocal smoother, and then I've tweaked it a little bit. Let's have a quick look at how that works. So we got a couple of controls here. We've got the threshold control, which allows you to move the whole thing all at once, and then we've got these individual controls that allow you to focus in on a particular frequency. Let's have a little listen to what this is doing for the vocals.
All these things I remember. All these things I remember. All these things I remember. All these things I remember.
Straight off the bat, it is doing a good job of taking out some of those kind of nasally, kind of nosy kind of frequencies round about that sort of 650 to sort of 700 hertz kind of region. I'm also using it to pull out some frequencies around about 2.5K that tend to be a bit kind of glassy and nasty. And I'm using it to take out a little bit of the low as well, just to help really just clean, just sort of lift the track up a little bit. I don't really need those low frequencies so much on these things. I'm not blown away, but it's working. It's doing something. Next up, let's try something where we want to remove some of the harsh frequencies, but we do want to keep some of them because it's giving us kind of an edge and a little bit of dissonance and some bite and some excitement and some rock and roll. This is taken from the single I released at the beginning of this year, Eye of the Storm, and this is the pitch drop at the end of the pre-chorus going into the chorus. As you can see, there's a lot of auto already going on. I had a couple of passes to kind of smoothing this out. So did the mix engineer, and it's one of the things that myself and the mix engineer went back and forth on a little bit to try and get it the way that we wanted it. Let's see if the Smooth Operator can offer us a different solution. All right then, let's drop the Smooth Operator in and have a look at what we got going on. Once again, we're starting with a preset. This time we're using a mastering preset, and we've got Harsh and Mud Remover. And again, I've given it a little bit of a tweak. Whereas before the focus dial was set down here somewhere, the focus is quite high here. What that means is that each of these individual bands is going to act much more independently of each other. If you were to set this all the way to 100, then each of these little dibbers would be acting completely independently of each other. So I've moved this guy down a little bit. So instead of pulling out 3K, we're pulling out just straight on the 2K there. And I've also pulled this guy down. So once again, we're taking out some of the lows because really I want to be able to free up some space there for the kick and what have you. I've just tweaked this setting here. So it's not taking out quite as much mud as it was doing on the mastered version. Let's have a listen to what it's doing, shall we? honesty, I thought this was going to be much more of a challenge than the vocal harmonies. This, on the other hand, is kind of, yeah, tame those harsh frequencies, but not too much. We want some of them. If anything, I think it's actually probably done a bit of a better job with this. I'm particularly impressed by how it gets rid of the mud. The other thing I will say is you do need to be careful when you're working with the threshold. It is very, very easy to start compressing far more than you intended. Okay, next up, let's have a go at using the sidechaining option, and this is something I'm genuinely excited about using. This sounds really interesting. So what we've got here is the chorus from Military Industrial Complex, and one of the things that we found really tricky to get right was the cowbell, the rotating cowbell. Let's find out what the smooth operator can do for this. All right then, let's drop it out of bypass and have a look at what we're doing. So once again, we started off with a little preset, brass section tamed, but to be honest, I've changed it so much, I'm not sure how much difference that's really going to make. So up here's our sidechain. This is if you're using Cubase, and here you go. What we've got is we've got the 80s cowbell. So we've got the cowbell is our sidechain. That's what's going to be triggering things. That's over here. And then over here, we've got the smooth operator sitting on the synth bus. As you can see, we can do some pretty dramatic stuff. We've got a real pitch down and a very tight cue, and a pretty similar thing going on here as well. It was always a challenge to try and get enough room for that cowbell without taking out too much body of the synth. Let's have a listen and see how the smooth operator has done at that. Sidechain is working in the way that I really hoped it would, which is that in a sense you can get a pretty good effect just by using this shape without a sidechain. You can just apply this shape to the smooth operator and it will give you some room for that cowbell. But if you sidechain the cowbell in and use it to trigger it, because it's much more responsive like that, as you'd expect a sidechain to be, it means you can be much more aggressive with the threshold. So you can pull stuff out when the cowbell is doing its thing, you can pull a lot out, and then when it's not doing its thing, the synth will fill the space. This is a very, very nice addition. I like this bit a lot. In all honesty, that was going to be the end of the video. Quite simply because I ran out of time and I needed to move on to other things. But the next day I was thinking about it and I thought, you know what, I really want to try this reverb trick with the sidechaining option. So here we go with the production for my new single, All the Little Things, and we've got one of the guitars from the pre-chorus, and between myself and the mix engineer, we had a real back and forth in terms of agreeing what that guitar should sound like relative to the reverb. It was very tricky to get enough size from the guitar and yet not have so much reverb that it affected the stereo panning effect. So let's have a look at what the smooth operator can do for us. Here we go. Let's take it out of bypass and have a look at what we're doing here. We've started off with yet another preset, Verby Guitar Clarity. And we've got ourselves the sidechain going. There we go. There's the guitar funk. Now I have tweaked the preset to the point where it's pretty much unrecognizable. Let's have a look at a couple of things we're doing here. Starting here in the low frequencies, I've adjusted the cue so we're taking out a little bit of those lows, just trying to clean those up a bit. I've shifted this here, so we're sitting about 330 hertz, something like that. Just pulling out some of those kind of nasty, kind of harsh frequencies that kind of stack up and build in your ear. And here we go with a little lower than 2K. We're about 1,750, 1.7K, just pulling out a little bit of kind of presence-y kind of sound there from the reverb. And again, then we're just pulling out, you can see we're taking off just a little bit of the top of it as well. Let's drop that onto the track and have a listen to what it's doing. Right off the bat, you can hear we're getting a much cleaner reverb there. I do like what this is doing to it. It's just helping to sit and kind of tuck that reverb kind of underneath the guitar, like just kind of keep it around that dry signal so it doesn't distract from it. One of the things that's impressing me about the Smooth Operator is how much it can handle complex signals. All right, then let's go back to our original question. Does the Smooth Operator give us something different, or is it more of an easy, convenient plugin for, forgive me, but producers and mixers who frankly can't really be bothered to use EQ and compression properly? I think without doubt the sidechaining option is the star of the show, particularly in how it dealt with that reverb. That was very, very interesting. It's giving you a different way of ducking a reverb relative to a dry signal. That is always going to be good news. I was also very impressed with how it dealt with muddy frequencies. I wasn't completely convinced it was right for that particular track, but there's no doubt it did it very, very well. I think what Baby Audio have done with the Smooth Operator is, on one hand, they've created a practical tool that is very quick, intuitive, easy to use for the kind of bridges and tunnels work of having to deal with particularly elements that are sort of in the background and things like that, things you don't want to feature, things you want to have sat back into your production, or like layering or thickening effects, where you're just getting sort of little bits of harsh frequency or muddiness or whatever that's just messing up your production. And then on the other hand, what they've created is, with the sidechaining option, is a genuinely interesting way and a genuinely interesting alternative to conventional compression and ducking reverbs. They're giving you a different way of dealing with creating a relationship between the dry signal and the wet signal. That is very, very interesting indeed. My advice: download the demo, try it out for yourself. It's going to come down to two things: whether you like the interface and whether it suits your workflow. If you enjoyed this week's episode, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out. Thank you for taking the time. My new single, All the Little Things, is out this week, Friday, May the 7th, on all platforms. You can catch a preview at the end of this video, and if you like what you hear, there's a pre-save link in the comments below. It'd be great if you could take a moment to pre-save it. It really helps with the Spotify algorithms. I'd really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you have any questions about this week's episode or any of the Tobisonics productions, feel free to ask me in the comments below, or you can contact me on social media at Tobisonics. Until next Tuesday, good night and good noise. Stay safe and stay healthy.
The wee things, all those little things. You and me, we can be a toucan. Rainbows at the end of your nose. Time blows bubbles, emerge from rubble. Haldon, collide with me, let's gaze through Hubble. The wee things.